As the top martial artist and the man closest to God, I claim my right to determine how revolutions will proceed in the future, in what form. Because of the large numbers of cowards in secret societies, in the military, in law enforcement, in informant programs, and in controlled political movements, as well as mental health groups and advocates. One must consider that the only way to truly be a revolutionary, a real revolutionary, is to be a man who transcends and stands on his own 10 toes. The only way for this to be effective is with a life of revolution that culminates in a surgical strike on the elite. Especially if one is telling themselves that they are playing both sides and undercover, or they're a spy in the enemy's ranks. Certainly, they must wash years worth of blood on their hands off by attacking the scum. It is of the utmost importance that anyone who sees himself as a good person, who's in the military or law enforcement, or in a controlled opposition group, or part of a security guard corporation, or somebody's personal entourage, or escort, or bodyguards, for these people to deal with the trash that they are guarding. The enemy cannot just see the threat from without, but they must see the threat and perceive it from within. This they will not be able to do. In my life, I have seen people I've known all my life, as well as friends that I've known the majority of my life, betray me or move away and cut all ties because of the enemy's tactics of coercion, bribery, sexual blackmail. They give them incentives, monetary gain, and promises of jobs, financial security, job security. They threaten them with the IRS and with investigations. And they have a long list of things that they use to make someone do their will. So the future of humanity really is in the hands of men such as myself, righteous men who are willing to do whatever it takes and sacrifice everything and everyone, as the Bible and the Quran says. I constantly show you Matthew 10, 37, 38, and 39. You don't listen, now do you? You love your family more than God. You seek to find your life instead of focus on the afterlife. You misinterpret what it means to be a moral citizen. We are threatened by the selfishness, shallowness, and cowardice in society. The Church of Satan openly says the same thing as Albert Pike did in his book, Morals and Dogma, valuing intellect and science over what they call superstition, which is really morals derived from Abrahamic faiths. The secret society movement is liberal with very few conservatives, and really liberals who pose as conservatives more often than not. And this includes neocons, who admit that they used to be liberals. The Eastern Star is the biggest faction of Freemasonry. Therefore, they have the most say in how things go. They are gays and feminists. Therefore, put the blame where it belongs, on the people who are in charge, which are a bunch of Eastern Star people. They are the Illuminati. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, the Illuminati merged with Freemasonry since the days of George Washington. The Illuminati these days is simply the high-ranking Freemasons and people with honorary Masonic degrees who are high-level bankers and Satanists and whatnot. This is irrefutable. Go look at the letters, the correspondence between George Washington and, I'll put his name in the comments. They're very open about what's going on and who's responsible. It's recorded in the Library of Congress that the Illuminati thoroughly infiltrated Masonry. And therefore, since there are over 2 million Masons in America, there are over 2 million Illuminists influenced by the Jacobins and the feminists from the French Revolution, not to mention the Jews and the gay rights movement and the controlled black civil rights movement, the abolitionists. All bad men have done good things. For one to highlight the good they have done and pretend that they are not capable of wrong is despicable. Again, the Satanic Temple says that they're for civil rights. They're for human rights. And they're pro-Constitution. And that it is their religion to uphold the religious freedom clause in the Constitution and to separate church from state. When you consider everything and the brute force the Satanic Temple uses, typically they are big, fat guys. You know, recently in San Jose, a few years back or whatever it wasn't that long ago, there were bikers meeting, and I'll put the link to the comment. I think it was Metro Active, the article that they reported. There was bikers meeting where the Satanists were supposed to meet or right next to them. And people confused the bikers for the Satanists because these are big, dumb idiots who aren't very articulate or wise. They're very simple-minded pawns of Freemasonry. They are an offshoot or a branch of Freemasonry. They may as well have a Masonic symbol on their buildings. These are the type of brainless dogs who call themselves secularists, humanists, Fabinists, and civil rights activists. One must stand on their own 10 toes. One must not respect the celebrities. One must not respect people with legitimate power, including teachers and professors. One must not respect the police or the military or any of these groups. There's no way around it. Very often I see people who are military or former military talking bad about the government that they not only supported, but killed for. It's quite sad, really, because I do believe that most of them probably do mean well. But they don't see their hypocrisy. They fought for the government. The people weren't giving them the orders. The establishment was. It's the same hypocrisy that the controlled opposition groups have. Just like the soldiers, they say, well, I'm for the people. I just happen to be a part of a controlled opposition group, and I know it. I know that the politicians are all bought and paid for by big business. But yet, I preach that I'm really for the people and what's in their best interest. You see that? It's the same with the police. They're like, well, we know the government is corrupt, but we're trying to serve and protect the people, you know? But we're working for the biggest oppressors of them and the biggest criminals, mass murderers, and eugenicists. This kind of hypocrisy is no small thing. You can't compare it to the hypocrisy of a priest, for example, who preaches, abstinence and chastity and wait for marriage and things like this, and then lust for women. That is a very small issue compared to these non-Christians and their hypocrisy that kills millions every year. Speaking of churches, they too are infiltrated and have become centers for the government to propagate their despicable falsehoods. One can learn scriptures and hear their opinions, but one must read the Bible themselves and come to their own conclusions. Do not end up loving the church and your preacher more than God. Do not love your first impression of Christianity more than God. Do your due diligence, find out what it really means to be a Christian, and you will be forced to the conclusion that nonconformity, depth of faith, spiritual deep, being deep spiritually, selflessness, not being of this world, being non-materialistic, non-conformist, brave, fearing no evil, though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, striving to be good, trying hard to be truthful. This is what it means to be a Christian. These things, the morality. Now, I'm not a creationist. I do not find that important. I personally believe that God made a single-celled organism and it evolved into everything for the most part. That's kind of an oversimplification, but I see it the way the evolutionists see it, except for I believe that God was the driving force. There was a God factor. And I do not believe the Bible contradicts that. Show me where it says exactly how God made every form of life. It says man came from the dust, and the dust he shall return. What is the dust? It's a speck of dust. It's a microscopic, single-celled organism. That's what it would look like. You also must realize that Darwinism and eugenics are the philosophies of the New World, or the philosophy of science. Time and time again, I point out that not only Galton, but many of the key eugenicists were Masons, the key players, the people in government that pushed it through. The reason why it lasted so long, the presidents, the Supreme Court, Oliver Wendell Holmes and Roosevelt, and on, Masons, Truman, Mason. He started the CIA. So they believe that if they can manipulate your environment, they can control how you will turn out. That's why they go to great lengths to manipulate the environment, the job market, the sentiments and attitudes in the environment, social planning. Okay, this is all to create an artificial environment, an artificial ecosystem that produces certain favorable types of people, favorable to the government and to the secret societies. When you consider everything, it is impossible to be part of a mainstream movement or even a large movement and to be correct. People must listen to people like me and come to the conclusion that they should have their own views and openly reject mainstream views, but not disclose what they're planning to do per se, unless they find it tactical to do so, such as in my case. And you must put the revolt in the revolution, insurrection, rebellion. You must fight these people. They are waging war on us. I haven't met very many Christians or any other type of person who would be shot at and would not take measures to defend themselves. We are in a prison state, and the guards are waging war on us illegally. It even violates their own oppressive laws, legislation, and statutes. Oh, you must fight back. Or don't even call yourself a revolutionary. In this time we live in, there's really three groups of people. One, devil-inspired, demonic oppressors that are complete conformists, shallow, selfish cowards. They only care about how they look, how much power they have, and their living standard, their quality of living. Then there are cowards, the average person who goes along with it because they're too cowardly to resist it. And then there are revolutionaries, and I'm not just talking about people who talk a good one, but people who intend to kill the enemy eventually. It is impossible to be a true revolutionary and seeing the revolution in the long term, and to not come to the conclusion that you must kill at some point. Impossible. This is war. And they control the major movements and the propaganda machine. There is no effective way to non-violently outmaneuver them. The only real change, the only uncontrolled change, is going to be from the barrel of a gun, the blade of a knife, the explosion of a bomb or something similar. Thank you.